The Volunteers rattled by Spencer and the Gamecocks. 438 yards and 6 TDs from Spencer Rattler left Tennessee's defense gasping and their CFP hopes all but gone. The fans of Columbia went crazy. South Carolina will gladly pay the fine. Spencer Rattler loves it. Shane Beamer loves it. The Vols sure to take a large tumble from number 5 in the CFP. Here's the rankings as they currently stand before the newest edition is released tonight. A good chance the top 4 remains the same with Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU. We know Tennessee will drop from 5, so USC figures to see some upward mobility, but we'll have to figure out how much. Now to help us take an even deeper dive as we prepare for tonight's new CFP ranking, the final week of the regular season, we bring in our college football expert, Jerry Palm. Jerry, Tennessee gets blown out by South Carolina. They lose Hendon Hooker for the season. He's out with a torn ACL. 2 losses now in the year for them. You figure their CFP hopes are all but gone. Were the Vols pretenders to begin with?
Well, first of all, that's unfair because, no, they definitely were not. Yeah, their hopes, though, are gone. Not all but gone. There's no way they're going to make the playoff now. But, this was a dominant team most of this season. They beat LSU badly at LSU. They beat Alabama. I mean, they had an excellent season and just had a bad day against a team that was on fire. And that's what happens. It's just one of those things. But it's unfortunate that, that turned out for them. But it's really unfair to call them pretenders all season long.
Tennessee were 22.5-point favorites, but they did have some solid wins at this point of the season. The Vols lost. Good news for the Pac-12, though. Their hopes of making the CFP, especially USC, since they edged UCLA to earn that berth in the Pac-12 title game. Huge game this weekend against Notre Dame first, but looking ahead of that, can the Trojans sneak their way in?
Yeah, they certainly can. The nice thing for USC now is they've got quality opponents on their schedule. So they're really the only ranked team that they had played so far was Utah, and that's the one that beat them. So now they can beat UCLA. They get a shot at Notre Dame, who's in the rankings and will stay there even if they lose. And then they will get a good opponent in the Pac-12 championship game. So they can pick up their 3 best wins of the year at the end of the season. And that certainly, all of those wins would boost their case for a spot in the college football playoff. And you talk about Tennessee's loss helping. It certainly does. But they might have won a competition with Tennessee anyway. So, it clears that path a little bit. I think this week you'll see USC possibly jump LSU in the rankings now that they've got a quality win and 1 fewer loss. If it doesn't happen this week, it would happen next week if they beat Notre Dame. But USC is now the leading contender, I would say, among the potential one-loss teams to one-loss conference champions to be a spot in the college football playoff.
Lincoln Riley made the CFP his first season with Oklahoma, now trying to do the same with USC. And when we look ahead to that Pac-12 game, USC likely will face either Utah, Washington, or Oregon. Let's go back to the SEC. Georgia, we figured they're a lock, that they'll keep rolling, they'll make the CFP. The rest of the conference, though, after a few weeks, it seemed that, hey, there could be 2 teams, there's a chance for even 3. But what about now? Will they even get more than just Georgia in?
Well, there was never really a realistic shot for 3. But now the only chance for 2 is for LSU to beat Georgia in the conference championship game. That would almost certainly put LSU into the playoff. Georgia at 12-1, as dominant as they've been this season, would also be in the playoff. That's the best and really only case scenario for 2 SEC teams to make the playoff at this point.
Group of 5 talk. UCF looked like they were in solid position to at least get a New Year's Six bowl. They lose. So now the doors open up for Tulane and Cincinnati. Who do you like to be that team out of the group of 5 to get a New Year's Six berth?
Well, today, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a 2-point favorite over Tulane to end the regular season. The winner of that game will host the American Conference Championship game. And they'll play UCF in that game because UCF should win any of the tiebreakers for second. So UCF has already won at Tulane, and they won big. So they'll feel pretty good if they get to play that game. Going to Cincinnati might be a little bit different, at least in the sense that they haven't already won that game. They beat Cincinnati, but they did so at home. So UCF, it still has to be considered, right there because they've already beaten these 2 teams. but now they have to travel and play that game on the road instead of at home. So I'm like Cincinnati at the moment.
I know the Knights certainly kicking themselves for falling last weekend and making things a lot more difficult for them. Jerry Palm, thank you very much for spending some time with us as we get ready for the newest CFP poll to come out later on this evening. For even more college football news, make sure you check out the Cover 3 podcast. It is rivalry week. That means we have some marquee games, especially Ohio State and Michigan. The guys are discussing how the Buckeyes defense is looking ahead of that big showdown with the Wolverines.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.